this thing on? Alright, I want to preface this video by saying that this is going to be a rant, so strap yourself in. I have been playing Marvel Rivals for a little over a year now, and I think that NetEase, who, if you don't know, are the developers of this game, are completely out of touch with their player base and are actively sabotaging and ruining a game that has so much untapped potential. And honestly, for me personally, this has been very painful and extremely frustrating to watch unfold. I am making this video, and yes, also a middle school level slideshow, because I genuinely care about Marvel Rivals. This is a game that had 1, an incredibly successful launch, 2, has a massive potential player base, obviously being Marvel fans and multiplayer gamers, and 3, under the right circumstances, and I would like to heavily emphasize, under the right circumstances, is one of the single most enjoyable gameplay experiences that I have had in years. So, how did it go from a point where I and a lot of other players absolutely love this game and couldn't wait to play it every day, to a point where myself and many other gamers are seriously questioning whether or not it's even worth playing this game anymore? Well, that's why I'm here today. I want to break down what went wrong with Marvel Rivals. Where am I coming from on this standpoint? Well, I've played a lot of multiplayer games over the years, especially in the hero shooter genre, mainly being Overwatch, Apex Legends, and Valorant, but Marvel Rivals hooked me in a way that very, very few games have before. Why is this? Well, I'm a lifelong Marvel fan. I love hero shooter games, as I just said, Overwatch, Valorant, Apex, whatever. And most importantly, Marvel Rivals nailed the hero design. Each character feels unique with a distinct playstyle that genuinely changes how you approach each game. The first time that I played Spider-Man, for example, it felt like a complete and total different gameplay experience when compared to my experience on vastly different heroes such as Magneto or Moon Knight, to name a few. The diversity in the gameplay is what made this game so special and unique to me. It was extremely refreshing, it was extremely enjoyable, and it made me fall in love with this game very quickly. So, what went wrong? Let's talk ranked. Specifically, why playing ranked in Marvel Rivals has gone from fun, challenging, and rewarding to frustrating and borderline unplayable. Where do I fit into all of this? Well, I'm not a pro player. I'm not trying to be a pro player. I probably couldn't be a pro player even if I wanted to. I'm just like 90% of the player base. I enjoy the game, I care about improving as a player, but I have other obligations and limited time to grind ranked. The highest rank that I've ever hit in Rivals is Diamond, so I am by no means some outstanding player. But anyway, back in Season 2, I got to Diamond pretty quickly, then I stepped away from the game for a while due to some frustrations that I was having, most of which will be covered in this video. But when Season 4 launched, I came back. After a week or so of playing quick play with some buddies, one of my friends and I decided to hop back on ranked. We started from bronze, and we blitzed through the ranks all the way up to platinum, which we kind of expected, as we were clearly better than most players in the lower ranks, being players who had formerly hit diamond multiple times. But once we hit platinum, we hit a brick wall. Despite improving as a player, and I mean significantly improving as a player, I cannot break past platinum. I'm more consistent, I flex my roles better, I make noticeably bigger impacts on team fights, my stats are up by large margins, my MVP and SVP counts have gone through the roof. So, what's the problem here? Well, in Rivals, it has become blatantly obvious to me that there is some sort of hidden matchmaking system going on behind the scenes. Here's what I believe is happening. The game doesn't just use visible rank to form teams. There's likely a hidden performance-based rating, something that is pretty standard within team-based multiplayer games. Let's call this rating your skill score for now. That determines how good the system thinks that you are. We can assume that this system is at least moderately accurate, taking the majority of your statistics each game into account. It uses this system to balance teams out so that the average skill score on each side is similar. This sounds relatively fair in theory, but in practice, it punishes improvement. You might be thinking to yourself at this point,
well, what are you talking about? That doesn't make sense.
Let's think of it like this. If you play well enough, and the system boosts your hidden rating to an above average level, it starts putting you with lower skill, below average teammates in order to balance out the match. You are now expected to carry players who are way below your level, and this is your payoff for becoming an above average player within your rank. And this is fucking bullshit. Even if you're the best player in the lobby, you can't make up for flat out shit tier teammates who die early in every team fight, refuse to switch their role, and consistently underperform. In case you're still not following, let's look at it this way. Here I have created two hypothetical teams with each individual player on each team being given a skill score from 1 to 100. As you can see, the average skill rating for each team is very similar. So, what's the problem here? Well, here is a visual representation I've created of what occurs if the lowest skill players within the lobby, who are in this instance part of Team B, die very early on in a team fight. Something that unfortunately happens quite frequently within Ranked, from my experience. Assuming that these skill ratings are relatively accurate, the total skill rating becomes completely lopsided in favor of Team A, despite Team B apparently having the best players in the lobby. The result of this is typically that the remaining players on Team B get absolutely steamrolled by the enemy team, demonstrating that a somewhat sizable gap in skill cannot make up for awful teammates who cannot adapt to team-oriented gameplay. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, well, this matchmaking's fucking stupid and it's the only reason I'm not in Grandmaster by now, because no, that would just be coping. There have been plenty of times where I've been on the A side of the scenario, and there have been plenty of times where I've been on the B side of the scenario, and there have been other times, though these times are few and far between, where I actually get put in a balanced lobby where both teams are relatively equal from top to bottom, and you actually get an enjoyable competitive gameplay experience. But as I just said, I unfortunately find these types of matches to be few and far between in the current state of Rivals. That being said, this problematic matchmaking means that your win rate will stay just around 500 no matter how much better you get at the game, unless you become good enough to hard carry every single game. And most of us, myself included, just aren't that good if we're being honest. But wait, how are these so-called low-skill players making it up the ranks in the first place? Well, it has been confirmed that in Rivals Ranked, you can climb with a below 500 win rate if you simply play a substantial enough amount of rank matches. The result of this is what most of the community now knows as rank inflation.
What is rank inflation?
Well, rank inflation, to put it short, simply refers to the idea that players who don't belong in a high rank are still able to make it into a high rank for a multitude of reasons. These lower skill players are able to climb slowly just by playing the game enough and getting carried by higher skill teammates. They end up getting inflated egos because their rank goes up even though their actual gameplay is not improving, and this essentially enables their bad habits and problematic playstyles. And higher skill players are hindered significantly because they're matched with absolute can teammates who drag them down every match. This creates an extremely frustrating ranked experience where time played essentially matters even more than your actual skill level. You can be a silver level player in this game and grind your way all the way up to Grandmaster if you play enough. That's just flat out retarded if we're being honest. I have played ranked in countless other games before, particularly if we're going to talk about games similar to Rivals. I've played ranked in Overwatch, I've played ranked in Rainbow Six Siege, I've played ranked in Valorant. All these ranked systems are at least somewhat similar to how it's done in Marvel Rivals. And while these systems have their flaws, none of them feel nearly as bad as Rivals does when it comes to matchmaking in ranked. This game's ranked matchmaking is genuinely infuriating at times. I am a better player than I was when I hit Diamond a few seasons ago in Season 2. I can say that with complete and utter confidence. But because this matchmaking punishes performance and punishes improvement within your rank, I am stuck slowly trudging my way through Platinum. If that sounds familiar to you, you are not alone. Let's take a look at the current roster in Marvel Rivals. Right now, there are 11 Vanguards, 23 Duelists, and 9 Strategists. This is obviously an insane imbalance, and yet NetEase refuses to add role queue to the game. NetEase has said on multiple occasions that they want to encourage
creative team comps
and
freedom of choice.
But that's complete bullshit, because the reality is, right now in Rivals, there is a clear and obvious meta. What is the current meta? Well, that's not a secret at this point. The current meta is 3 Vanguards, 1 Duelist, and 3 Strategists. And if you're not running this team comp and the other team is, you're at a huge disadvantage before the match even starts. So, The problem becomes blatantly obvious here. When 2 or 3 people insta-lock DPS at the start of your match, because that's the biggest and most interesting pool of heroes, you're screwed. You either effectively throw the game by stacking DPS, or you flex into a role that you might not want to play, and either way, this is not fun. So, why has this issue become so common? Well, as I just said, duelists are by far the most diverse and also the most interesting heroes in the game, plain and simple. And this makes total sense because there's more of them than any other role by far. There's more duelists than there are strategists and vanguards combined. And in direct contrast to this fact, the meta only uses 1 per team, and whether NetEase intended for it to be this way or not, this is the meta that they've created through their hero changes and balancing. So, if you want to have the best possible chance of winning, 5 of 6 players on your team are forced to choose from a far smaller, less interesting set of heroes. This just straight up fucking sucks and is, quite frankly, poor game design. It's no surprise at this point that people want to play DPS more than any other role, but the lack of role queue punishes them for doing so, and it punishes their teammates even more when they refuse to switch roles to best suit their team. And then they went and made it worse. Let's take a look at the heroes that Rivals has added since its launch. We have 5 duelists, being Mr. Fantastic, Human Torch, Phoenix, Blade, and Daredevil, 3 vanguards being The Thing, Emma Frost, and Angela, and 2 strategists being Invisible Woman and Ultron. So you mean to tell me that looking at the initial roster of this game, when it dropped, they decided to add the same amount of duelists as vanguards and strategists combined? Flat out retarded decision making, the most bloated category in the game, just keeps on getting bigger while the other options stay limited. And this, again, just flat out sucks. If you refuse to implement role queue, then at least balance your roster. But NetEase is doing neither, and this is just brain dead decision making. So again, as a result of this, we are left in a situation where either 5 of 6 players on a given team are losing access to over half of the hero options every single match, or where your team ignores the meta by stacking DPS heroes and significantly lowers your team's chances of winning right off the bat before the fighting even begins. This issue is so blatantly obvious, and it's genuinely fucking infuriating that NetEase seems to be so oblivious when it comes to clear as day issues plaguing the current state of their game. I made this video for one reason and one reason alone, which is that I love this game and I want it to be successful, and I don't want it to die out within a year from now. But we have to acknowledge that Marvel Rivals is in a bad state. It's already seen a sizable loss of players since its peak following launch, and if NetEase doesn't start listening to the community, it's going to bleed more players fast. That's just the reality of the situation. The matchmaking's broken, the role imbalance is just out of control at this point, and both of these problems are making ranked feel completely unenjoyable and rage-inducing, even for players who genuinely enjoy the core elements of the gameplay in Rivals like myself. With all that being said, I really appreciate you for watching. Comment if you have anything to add to this conversation, like and subscribe, and I'll be back soon with more content. Goodbye.